Echoes of Love. Part 1. Foundations of Love Chapter 1. The spaces between Liliana swore under her breath as she swerved to avoid the pothole that seemed determined to eat her little sedan alive. The back end of her car lurched worryingly, and she tightened her grip on the steering wheel. "Come on, Betsy," she muttered, "we're almost there." Betsy, as Liliana had dubbed the temperamental vehicle, coughed but gamely chugged forward. After several more bone-jarring bumps, the imposing lines of Havenwood Manor loomed into view. Liliana exhaled, a strange pang of anxiety mingling with relief. Another fundraising gala, another opportunity to network with Seattle's elite, or so the invitation had promised. As a young architect struggling to establish her design firm, it was a potential goldmine. Or at least, that's what she repeated to herself in the mirror that morning. Pulling into the packed driveway, Liliana resigned herself to the valet service and the inevitable hefty tip that would eat into her already meager budget. The manor was a sprawling stone relic of a bygone era, nestled amongst immaculate grounds that hinted at old money and quiet privilege, worlds away from Liliana's own scrappy upbringing on the south side of the city. A wave of imposter syndrome washed over her. She scolded herself for the familiar negativity. She'd worked really hard to get here. As she stepped out of the car, a young man with too much gel in his carefully styled hair rushed toward her with an expectant grin. Her smile in response felt strained, every inch of the opulence setting a stark reminder of the gulf between her world and this one. Tilda across the city, under the harsh fluorescent lights of a hospital break room, Dr. Ethan Sinclair drained the last of his lukewarm coffee, the bitterness mirroring his mood. Exhaustion seeped into his bones, the aftermath of yet another grueling double shift in the ER. The past few years had been an endless cycle of adrenaline-fueled nights and bleary-eyed mornings. His passion for medicine still burned, but it flickered in the face of overwhelming bureaucracy and the constant battle against an overloaded system. A buzz from his phone drew his attention. A text from his mother. A hopeful invitation to a fundraiser hosted by her social circle. He grimaced, picturing the well-meaning but stifling crowd of wealthy patrons, more interested in photo opportunities than the cause itself. The mental image of canapes and forced conversation made his shoulders tense. But duty outweighed his desire for a mindless night in front of the TV. His mother had been relentless with her encouragement, a subtle guilt trip expertly masked as concern. With a sigh of resignation, he tossed the empty cup in the trash. At least the event promised an open bar, and with any luck he could make his obligatory appearance and escape without getting trapped in too many conversations. Character diversity matters in contemporary storytelling. Both Liliana and Ethan, despite their different backgrounds, are bound by a quiet ambition and a sense of being adrift in their own lives. Liliana, fueled by childhood spent in underfunded neighborhoods, carries a determination to create spaces that reflect the needs of the community rather than simply the whims of the wealthy. Ethan, despite his medical successes, feels trapped in the relentless hamster wheel of hospital life, yearning for a connection and purpose that extends beyond emergency room diagnoses. Both are drawn to something more, an elusive sense of fulfillment their current paths cannot provide. At first glance, their worlds could not be farther apart, yet their unseen struggles echo a universal theme: the longing to build a life that aligns with one's deepest desires. Chapter 2. The chance meeting. The grand ballroom of Havenwood Manor buzzed with the clink of champagne glasses and the practiced laughter of the well-heeled crowd. Liliana navigated the room with the forced cheer of a seasoned networker, handing out business cards and plastering on polite smiles. Underneath, her anxiety simmered. Everyone here seemed to belong, their connections as natural as their designer outfits and practiced air of ease. Seeking refuge from the relentless small talk, Liliana slipped through a set of French doors, finding herself in a dimly lit library. Leather-bound tomes lined the towering shelves, their musty scent a welcome change from the overpowering floral perfume that hung heavy in the air. A soft gasp escaped her lips as her eyes scanned the room. Nestled into a worn armchair by the window was the most unexpectedly handsome man she'd ever seen. Dressed in a slightly rumpled suit that hinted at a hasty arrival, he was completely absorbed in a thick, well-loved book. There was a raw weariness etched into the lines of his face, a world weariness that seemed at odds with the polished crowd outside. The usual networking instincts lay dormant. Instead, Liliana felt a pull toward him, an unexplainable intrigue that cut through the practiced chatter in her head. Ethan, startled by the rustling sound, looked up from his book. His eyes, a startling shade of hazel, scanned the room before landing on Liliana. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. The world, with its expectations and pretenses, seemed to fall away. Their gazes met, and a spark, as cliché as it sounds, ignited a thrill of recognition. Her usual social anxiety was absent. There was a depth in his eyes, a shared flicker of exhaustion perhaps, or was it the same longing she battled to keep buried each day? It was a connection that went beyond words. "Well," he broke the silence, his voice a low rumble that belied his disheveled appearance, "this is certainly more interesting than anything happening out there." He gestured towards the ballroom with a wry smile that tugged at the corners of his lips, revealing an unexpected hint of boyish charm. Liliana found herself smiling back, an involuntary response that felt foreign yet so utterly right. "Indeed," she agreed, moving closer to the window, "I'm rather partial to bookshelves and the faint scent of old adventures." Something about her candor, the lack of social preteens, drew him out of his shell. Adventures, indeed, he mused, a spark of amusement warming his eyes. Far more appealing than discussing stock portfolios and summer vacations in the Hamptons, wouldn't you say? A wave of relief washed over Liliana. This was unexpected. Here, of all places, was someone who seemed to see beyond the polished veneer and shared her unspoken exhaustion with the endless social game. This is the power of crafting a chance encounter. The beauty lies in its unexpected nature. Liliana and Ethan are instantly drawn to each other by a spark of recognition, something that resonates deeper than surface appearances or societal expectations. Their unexpected connection hints at the potential for something real, a sense of refuge from the relentless demands of their respective lives. Chapter 3. First impressions. The library became their secret haven, a place stolen from the confines of the fundraiser. Liliana found herself forgetting the business cards tucked securely in her dress pocket, the names of potential clients fading in priority. Instead, conversation flowed as freely as the expensive champagne Liliana had no desire to sample. Ethan found himself laughing with a genuine ease he hadn't felt in ages. There was a fire in Liliana, a determination veiled by a disarming warmth. Her ambition, focused on shaping communities rather than lining bank accounts, resonated with his own disillusionment toward a profession that increasingly felt like cog turning instead of healing. Yet, beneath the connection, doubts crept in. Liliana, for all her confidence, carried a shadow of uncertainty. He was just another man from that world, wasn't he? Privileged, out of touch with the realities that formed the basis of her work. His disheveled suit and hurried presence seemed to bolster her fears. Was this just another passing fascination for someone so different, a distraction before he vanished back into the world of country clubs Liliana would only ever see on blueprints? Ethan found himself equally conflicted. Liliana was undeniably captivating, her sharp wit and passion cutting through any preteens. But was there space in her well-structured life for someone like him? Chaotic schedules, the constant buzz of his phone, the emotional baggage that came with the territory of his profession? Even the ease of conversation couldn't erase the disparity in their lives. Did she have any real comprehension of what his world looked like, with its alternating mix of despair and triumph? As the evening wound down, the reality of their separate spheres settled over them like a heavy curtain. He had a double shift looming in a matter of hours. She had client meetings and deadlines piling up at her bare-bones office. Yet, as they hesitantly exchanged numbers, neither could truly bring themselves to say goodbye. The spark that had ignited was both exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. It was easier to slip back into the roles they wore so well, the ambitious architect, the dedicated doctor. They hid their misgivings behind polite smiles, neither willing to voice the unspoken question that vibrated between them. Could this be the start of something that bridged the chasm between their worlds, or simply a fleeting connection destined to fade? This chapter focuses on first impressions not being entirely accurate, something so crucial in nuanced storytelling. Misconceptions arise, fueled by both societal biases and personal insecurities. Liliana and Ethan are drawn to each other, yet the fear of misalignment lingers. It's a realistic conflict, adding tension even at the precipice of a budding romance. Chapter 4. Building connections. In the days following the fundraiser, Liliana found herself thinking about Ethan more than any potential client. His weary eyes, the way laughter transformed his face, the surprising depth of their conversations, it all swirled through her head, a welcome distraction from the endless stream of project proposals and demanding emails. A text arrived, tentative yet hopeful. Coffee instead of canapés? Would love to hear more about your ideas for community spaces. Ethan, her heart fluttered with a mix of surprise and a giddy warmth she hadn't felt in years. She typed a quick reply, her fingers struggling to keep up with the unexpected smile that crept across her face. They met at a bustling little coffee shop near the hospital, an unassuming common ground amidst their disparate worlds. Liliana, meticulously organized as always, arrived with sketches, her notebook open to pages filled with concepts for affordable housing projects and vibrant community centers. Ethan arrived a few minutes late, his scrubs haphazardly tucked into a messenger bag, apology mingling with a sheepish grin. But as they delved into her designs, order and chaos found a curious balance. Ethan's practical medical knowledge offered surprising insights. The placement of a window flooding natural light into a community room was more than aesthetics, it held the potential for psychological well-being. The wide pathway curving through a playground design wasn't just landscaping, it was accessibility for individuals with disabilities. Liliana, in turn, was fascinated by the stories he shared. It was more than medical jargon, it was compassion for the overworked single mother, determination for the injured athlete fighting to return to normalcy, and the quiet frustration of a system that valued efficiency over humanity. The language of building and the language of healing began to intertwine in unexpected ways. Their shared passion for improving lives, for creating spaces, physical or metaphorical, where people could thrive transcended their backgrounds. Ours seemed to melt away, and their differences morphed into complementary strengths. The unspoken question of whether they fit into each other's worlds dissolved, replaced by an unspoken promise of potential, the thrill of discovering common ground where none seemed possible. As they parted ways, the setting sun painted the sky in streaks of vibrant orange and pink. They lingered for a moment, the question hanging unspoken in the air. Ethan reached out, a hesitant, almost questioning touch as his thumb traced the curve of her sketch-stained hand. The connection, fragile yet undeniable, crackled between them. This scene is where representation broadens appeal and themes become tangible. Liliana and Ethan don't just find common ground in personal interests, it's their mutual desire to make a tangible difference in the world. Their passions complement each other, showcasing the importance of perspectives from different fields of work. The beauty of their connection is built on shared ideals, not just surface-level attraction.